Waking up in the morning, knowing I had more new Robotech to watch, got me out of bed pretty quickly. Thanks to my brother having Robotech Art 1, I knew this was the end of the saga for Rick, Lisa, Min-Mei, and everyone. And there were other characters to meet, other challenges to face, other aliens to fight. But I was anxious to find out what happened to the intrepid crew of the SDF-1 and the Zentradi. So, in the wee hours of the dawn, while my brother and Bash were still crashed out elsewhere, I settled in with Fortress Maximus, who was basically my pretend SDF-1 at the time, and Jetfire somewhere nearby, and started up the final volume of the Macross saga. And the last thing I remembered from the night before was our heroes staging a daring gamble to capture the Robotech factory satellite, to secure their own ability to make a new fleet to protect the Earth and spread mankind out into the galaxy. Admiral Gloval was en route to tour this most recent acquisition personally. He and Claudia are guided by Exodore and the other Robotech engineers and scientists, and it's cool to see that this factory is mostly automated, mass-producing Zentradi arms on a grand scale, which helps explain why the Zentradi had such a fighting force, but didn't know how to repair it. While on his tour, Gloval also finds that a fair amount of the factory is actually in a fair amount of disrepair. Gloval is incredibly concerned at the state of the factory, as Exodore presents him with a status report on their overall findings.
Are you sure the reports are accurate, Exodore?
Mm-hmm. Our defense depends on continued operation.
Never mind. Do whatever you can, and do it quickly. Carry on.
Although the situation wasn't nearly as hopeful as he would have liked, Gloval puts his faith in his people that the genius of these engineers and the human know-how of design and repair could help get the factory satellite up and running at full capacity. The future of both the people of Earth and the Zentradi now depended on it. Speaking of societies in disrepair and on the verge of collapse, we find the Robotech Masters have gathered together a great council of its surviving members. All factions of the remainder of their race were represented here, each one led by a triumvirate of Tyroleans, every one of them with the same goal: to reclaim Zor's battle fortress and its protoculture matrix, to preserve their own society and restore it to its former glory and might. As it stands, their own power reserves are fairly limited and cannot sustain a direct fold to Earth. The Council determines that a long journey of more than a dozen years at least is ahead of them, and some of them may not survive such an exodus. However, the eldest triumvirate of the Masters concedes to this plan, knowing the overall importance of this mission. And thus, the Robotech Masters begin their voyage to the Earth. This scene with the Masters actually replaces a scene from Macross, a fun one with Sammy, Kim, and Vanessa all gossiping together while on duty about the latest tabloids of Min-Mei. Word is that her and Kyle aren't getting along these days and are likely to split, although Kim is suspicious it isn't all an act, since celebrities are known to do this kind of drama to get attention once their careers start to take a dive. Sammy hates to see Min-Mei having such troubles and can't believe she'd manufacture them. But Vanessa has heard that it seems the trouble is Min-Mei has found herself another man. Sammy gasps at the scandal, and it's only then that they notice that their command officer is watching them. More than a little disapprovingly. The trio then and there kind of put it all together, realizing that the other man in Minmei's life is most likely her ex, and that ex is known to be Rick Hunter. And Lisa's own current drama with Captain Hunter was the most widely known secret on the base. The trio break up their little gossip session while Lisa looks on, knowing it's hopeless with those three. Besides, a report comes in about Zentradi trouble brewing in New Detroit City. It so happens that within the crashed Zentradi ship from which New Detroit was built, there was an intact sizing chamber excavated. These protoculture chambers were made of a rather obscure technology that even Exodore and his team had yet to completely understand. The delicate nature of them making them difficult to reverse engineer. To find one in working condition was rare, the value of them making them a great prize. This one in New Detroit was kept at a complex in the middle of the city that served as the city hall, the event center, and a fortress wherein this valuable technology was kept. Technology valuable enough for secret spies from Khyron to hijack in a violent raid. They make a break for it in a convoy of heavily armed flatbed transports, blowing away any security systems or resistance in their path. Too bad for them that Rick Hunter is not far away, patrolling with his wingmen, who wonder if they shouldn't wait for backup. But Rick knows there's no time to waste. They speed towards the danger, getting a bird's eye view of the city, where it doesn't take long for them to spot the mayhem this Zentradi heist is making. The convoy spots the incoming Veritechs and open fire, while Rick skillfully evades it all, trying to close in on the bandits. Not wanting to just open fire and kill them all if he could help it, even as one of them fires a giant RPG at Skull One. Rick converts to Battloid in his descent, evading the rocket, and brutally punishing the Zentradi who'd fired it. Jeez. The collapse of the giant causes these smaller Zentradi drivers to hit the brakes and avoid hitting the body in front of them, as Rick swoops around, running up with his wingmen, ordering these interlopers to stand down.
It's useless to resist. You're completely surrounded. You must understand that what you've done is unacceptable behavior by human standards and that you will be punished. Move aside. We will now secure the protoculture chamber.
Although Rick had heroically stopped the burglary of this valuable tech, the Zentradi rebels would almost certainly try again at some point. Far to the north, we find where those insurgents had originated from, with a massive ragtag group of Zentradi rebels standing around broken battle pods buried in the ice and snow. And nearby, a crashed Zentradi ship acting as their base. The few insurgents who escaped the Veritechs and managed to make it back to their base report their failure to the mastermind of their attempted larceny, Grell, whom, in turn, must bear the unenviable task of reporting this failure to the commander of these forces, Khyron the Backstabber.
Idiot! Feeble plan has failed us again.
I'm sorry, sir, but they failed to eliminate the communication center and the Veritechs.
Enough, Grell! Our soldiers couldn't even defend themselves.
But sir, if you'd only listen to...
Shut up, Grell! Your leadership ability has been getting worse and worse every day.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say...
Do not interrupt. I say that you should have had no trouble in capturing the protoculture chamber.
Look, it might appear as though this is my fault, but the truth of the matter is that our power...
Enough! I don't want to hear one more excuse out of you.
Stop arguing, Azonia! Grell, I want you to listen, understand me?
Sir, I'm listening.
Excellent. Because my reputation is at stake here, and I need that protoculture chamber to save face, and if I don't get it, I shan't spare yours. You understand me? Now get out of here!
Yes, sir.
Now, Grell!
Yes, sir, I'm going.
Tell me confidentially, Khyron, do you really think he can handle it?
I certainly hope for our sakes that this time he is able to do exactly what I told him to.
You know how to handle your soldiers. Khyron.
Stop it, Azonia.
As much pleasure as Khyron took in Azonia and her games of copulation, this was neither the time nor the place. But she had become something more than just another individual for Khyron to conquer. She had also become something of a confidant, her companionship, support, and suggestions being far more congenial than Grell's had ever been. Therefore, he confided in her his next plan, knowing Grell would somehow bungle it if he knew. There was a Micronian adage Khyron had found true. If you want something done, you've got to do it yourself.
Now listen, there is something I couldn't tell Grell, but that I'm going to tell you. I'm going after that protoculture machine myself. I can't count on him to do it. I want you to stay here and take command while I'm gone.
This is starting to get good.
Back in New Detroit, Rick was busy overseeing the delicate retrieval of this protoculture sizing chamber as he directed equipment operators to carefully place it upon a stand that would better secure it for further transport. This action in the middle of town drew the eyes of the city's populace, which was made up mostly of Zentradi, both micronized and in original size. To find that there was an intact sizing chamber was a big deal to them, their size, the choice of it, and the possibility of access to make that choice. It was a very personal decision for Zentradi of all sizes. And to see the Micronians dictating the handling of one of their most privileged rights was creating a tension Rick felt mounting in the crowd behind him. This tension was only increased as a sporty black car came screeching up abruptly, and Rick noticed who was sitting in the front seat.
Oh, Min-Mei.
Min-Mei took in the crowd, the wonder of the protoculture chamber, and instantly felt the tension and trouble brewing around her beleaguered, adorable Ricky Hunter. Rick was always conflicted in his heart at the thought of Min-Mei, let alone the sight of her. But he's distracted as the mayor of New Detroit exits the car, causing Rick to assume Min-Mei must be in town for a concert and is touring the city with its lead official. The human mayor would like to cooperate with Rick in securing this chamber, but considering the Zentradi population here, feels it's his duty to claim possession of it for the right of his citizens. Rick argues that it's because of the value and nature of the chamber that the military must take ownership of it, for the very protection of these people the mayor represents. Unfortunately, his words come across as somewhat discriminatory to the onlookers, who feel patronized by Rick's views. Rick stands his ground, though, and attempts to smooth things over with the mayor, all while Min-Mei looks on. And another individual seizes this opportunity to push back on the military that he loathes.
What is he doing? See my problem, Captain?
I know that the last thing you want is trouble here in New Detroit, Mr. Mayor, but there's one thing that remains clear. Misuse of the chamber would be disastrous.
But what can I do?
We must all cooperate to protect the protoculture chamber. You must do your part.
Then tell all the facts.
Military business, Kyle. Don't interrupt us.
This isn't just military business, it's everyone's, Captain, because what you're talking about is the Zentradi's right to change back into giants whenever they want.
You've got to be kidding.
If you think I'm kidding, you're a bigger fool than I ever dreamed possible, Captain. And I'm sure that most of the people in this city would agree with me on this. Isn't that right?
Get out of here, Rick, before there's trouble.
See what I'm saying?
Oh, Min-Mei.
Well, do you?
So, still in love with her.
Listen now. When they take away your right to use the protoculture chamber, it's the first step toward martial law. This protoculture chamber should be controlled by the citizens of this city. You tell them, Kyle!
You better listen to us right now.
Hey, why don't you climb back into your plane and get out of here while you still can?
Listen to me, please. Thank you. Now, isn't it better to have this machine secure from people who would use it against you than to endanger the whole city?
All of your lies are making me sick to my stomach.
Go on now.
We're not going to take this anymore.
You see, these people mean business, Captain.
I've heard enough, okay? This is a piece of military hardware, and I've been ordered to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, and I fully intend on carrying out my orders, understand?
Yeah, we'll see about that. This is your last warning.
Leave here now! Leave here now! Leave here now! Leave here now!
Please, Captain, you have to go.
Leave here now! Leave here now! Oh, Kyle, how could you do this to me?
Min-Mei found herself blaming Kyle for a lot of things lately, but she'd stuck by him, even when she could have gone to Rick. At this moment, though, all she wanted was for her and Rick to be together, to rush to him and feel his embrace as he never let her go again. And she knew he would have long ago, if not for Kyle. Rick was sweating, unsure how to handle this situation. Should he follow his orders no matter what, or succumb to these townsfolk? Even as Kyle whips them up into a mob. And all the while, Min-Mei was watching as Kyle humiliated him in front of her. He couldn't stand it all, and decided he had to leave these people to the consequences of their own choices and whatever fate had in store. But he could never have known it might be so terrorizing. Khyron had assembled a hand-picked hit squad of his finest warriors, clad in the most heavily armed Nosjodo Ga power armor. And if there was one thing Khyron was good at, it was rousing his troops before a fight.
Listen to me. We are the last true Zentradi. We must capture the protoculture chamber. No sacrifice can be considered too great. We shall succeed. Follow me!
Back at the central building of New Detroit, a pair of battloids whom Rick left behind help finish securing the protoculture chamber, gently setting it down in its new home. The mayor can't help but breathe out his concerns that perhaps they can't defend the chamber on their own without the help of the military. Kyle reminds the mayor that this chamber rightfully belongs to the Zentradi people, and he shouldn't second-guess himself. But even as he resolves that he did the right thing, Min-Mei isn't so sure. As he flies back to base with the rest of his squad, Rick isn't sure either that he made the right choice by leaving. If only Kyle hadn't intervened and stoked the flames Rick was trying to tamp down. When one of his squad members radios Rick expressing his own gut feeling that maybe they shouldn't have left, Rick agrees with them, but feels powerless to help these townsfolk who had willingly sent them away, deciding to respect those wishes, as unsettling as it was. While Rick and his team fly away, the team of power-armored Zentradi led by Khyron close in.
Remember our mission! Fight to the end! Find the protoculture chamber, for no matter what the sacrifice, it is for a greater cause than life itself!
Min-Mei, Kyle, and the mayor continued their own preparations for Min-Mei's scheduled concert in New Detroit. But as the mayor shows off their venue, Kyle can't help but notice how absent-minded and aloof Min-Mei is being.
Open the curtain, Pops, and hit the main spots.
Sure thing, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Min-Mei, what seems to be the problem today anyway? You're going to upset the mayor.
I just don't feel like singing.
And why not?
Because I don't feel this place is safe with the protoculture chamber here, and because of what you did to Captain Hunter. He did save my life, you know.
You make it sound like it's a lot more than that, Min-Mei.
Well, you asked me, so I told you.
Well, I just wish you weren't so upset, that's all. We're in no danger here, and it didn't hurt your flyboy to have his feathers ruffled.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, ready or not?
Yeah, how about that?
I think the whole place looks great, sir.
Why, thank you, sir. Sounded like an explosion to me.
Quick, let's get outside!
The descending marauders of Khyron swooped in swiftly, dispatching the lumbering and sparse number of destroids spread around the city, as well as its communications center. Although some return fire found its mark against these foes, nothing could stop them in their quest to obliterate all resistance and take the prize they'd come for. The mayor was finding great regret in this moment of having turned away the help of Captain Hunter, his worst fear coming to pass. Along with Kyle and Minmay, he watched as the citizens of his city were massacred, explosions all around. Kyle was shocked at the savagery of these Zentradi, the ferocity in which they came. All Minmay could do was cover her eyes from the carnage and scream. The slow and clumsy mecha of the local Destroid battalion did their best, but they weren't nearly as maneuverable as a Veritech. Being easily taken out by the Zentradi power armor piloted by giant warrior veterans of countless battles. Khyron's sensors revealed he was close to the location of the sizing chamber as he destroyed everything in sight between he and his goal.
I'm getting high reflex activity readings. Soon I will have that protoculture chamber. All battle pods converge on my signal immediately.
What have I done? What have I done?
They've overrun our position and they're heading your way.
This could be it.
The two Veritechs of the Skull Squadron Rick had left behind braced with the Destroids for the defense of the protoculture chamber. As the Zentradi burst through the hatch, firing indiscriminately, they tore through all resistance, blew through every wall. Even the one Battloid that tried to surprise them stood no chance, blaster fire filling it with holes. Even as they momentarily held off this wave of attack, Khyron drops through the ceiling, crushing a Spartan defender that had an enemy on the ropes. The remaining Battloid tries to attack him from behind, but one swift kick from Khyron shatters the Veritech to pieces. Khyron then stands in glorious victory and looks to his great prize, the protoculture sizing chamber. All while the mayor stands idly by, watching helplessly as all of his ominous fears have come to pass. Back at the SDF-1, after Rick's return and report about the events in New Detroit, Admiral Global commends Captain Hunter for using good judgment in a difficult situation. All that said, he begins the real business he and Exodore had summoned these most trusted advisors together for. The final report of Exodore's findings in the research of the origins of the Zentradi. He actually finds it difficult to speak of, considering the implications of it, which Miria is also finding difficult to bear. Global reluctantly but willingly takes over, having already guessed at what the findings entail, postulating that the Zentradi were created by the Robotech Masters as biological weapons of destruction. A grand army to conquer other worlds, subjugating them for the Robotech Masters. Worlds such as Karbara, Praxis, Optera, and many others. Even as they occupied them, the Zentradi began to feel more powerful than their creators, fighting amongst themselves for a time before revolting and overthrowing the Masters themselves. But as they'd been genetically designed to be nothing more than weapons of war and fighting, it was all they knew for thousands of years. Max was concerned for his wife and what this meant for her, for their daughter, for the future of both human and Zentradi from here on out. He asks if there is a protogenic relationship between the people of Earth and the Zentradi. Exodore says there may be some influence from their progenitors in human evolution, but considering the Zentradi were cloned soldiers engineered to be an army, the similarities between them and the people of Earth could very well be a cosmic coincidence.
A coincidence? Exodore, the odds on that are 1 trillion billion to 1.
Whew.
Well, Commander, the odds of our coexisting together, they might be even greater.
So the truth is, although our races are similar, they are not the same. My race was protoculturally devoid of everything but the genetically engineered desire to fight. My people evolved as toys for our creators, the Robotech Masters, toys of destruction.
It was a lot to take in, especially for Miria and Max alongside her. There was so much to consider in all of this, in the grand scheme of the universe. In the odds of this battle fortress landing on this planet and everything that had happened since. Rick and Lisa find a quiet moment on a private balcony together, trying to sort it all out.
Toy of destruction, that's what he called himself.
Yes.
Genetically programmed for fighting. It's pretty sad.
If you ask me, it sounds a lot like us. Aren't we always fighting?
It was tough to say if Lisa meant the human race in general, or she and Rick fighting with each other specifically. Either way, Rick worried at her meaning, and found it rather cynical.
Oh, come on, Lisa, that's not fair.
I wasn't trying to be, just making a point.
Rick was pretty sure Lisa was talking about the two of them now, but before he can retort, Claudia interrupts them with some grave news.
Oh?
Rick, Lisa, I'm glad I found you two.
What's going on?
Zentradi warships attacked New Detroit.
When was it?
Their communication signal was lost about 10 minutes ago, and their phone lines were cut. One of our recon ships spotted the fighting.
Rick, it's not your fault!
No!
Rick, don't blame yourself! You know, I knew something terrible like this was going to happen.
Rick couldn't get his flight group into the air fast enough, launching his squad towards New Detroit as the command center monitored the situation. Ixidor was using this attack on New Detroit as an example to illustrate his point that the Zentradi were bred for war and conquest and may not be able to overcome that instinct. Gloval and Claudia remind Ixidor that he himself stands as an example that the Zentradi are people. They are more than just living weapons, and they all have the power to make a choice in how they wish to live their lives, the way Ixidor has. Ixidor takes their point, but is still downtrodden in his cynicism, citing the history of the universe, that it seems no race or culture in it has ever avoided war and conflict. Admiral Gloval is forced to concede that point, even as he makes plans for the future, praying that peace can somehow be achieved indefinitely. As Rick closes in on New Detroit and takes in the wreckage and destruction below him, he blames Kyle for pressuring him to leave, but also blames himself for giving in to that pressure. If he just stood his ground, this tragedy might never have happened. Nearby, a broken Tomahawk destroid, one that had likely been destroyed defending people from the attack. Two of the lives it saved now scurry near its feet. Kyle desperately tries to get his car to start as the engine whines and refuses to turn over, while Minmay keeps a lookout for more attackers, or possibly for Rick to fly to her rescue. She also blamed herself for this. She felt she should have stood up to Kyle when he chased Rick and his team away from the city. Should have made Kyle just finally shut up. Why couldn't she be stronger to say no to him, to leave him behind, to find his own way in this wasteland of a world? Kyle yelps in glee as his car finally starts, and he yells at Minmay to get in, but she hesitates, still hoping to see Rick swooping in to take her away from all of this. But she relents, still not strong enough, and she gets in the car, albeit reluctantly. If she'd only just waited another moment, she would have seen her wish come true. Rick lowers the legs of his fighter, coming in for a landing as he spots Minmay in Kyle's car. She notices him in the rearview monitor and can't believe her eyes. Rick quickly lands and hops out, running for the car, as Minmay begs Kyle not to leave yet. There was no way Kyle wasn't going to take off. No way he'd stay and face Hunter after all this. After being proven wrong, after knowing Minmay would rather leave with Rick than him. He hits the gas pedal and zooms off, leaving Rick behind as he reaches out for Minmay, and she watches him grow smaller in the distance. Once again, she wasn't strong enough. Maybe she never would be, and she decides that maybe she and Rick and that life together was simply never meant to be. Rick saw Minmay in the back seat, but she didn't even put up a fight to make Kyle stop the car. She just stared at Rick. What was she thinking, taking off with that idiot, staying with him? After what he caused to happen to this city? Rick didn't even care to rub Kyle's nose in it. He only cared about Minmay's well-being, her safety, and he wondered when all of this fighting would stop. If Rick only knew just how much worse it was about to get. At Khyron's base, a line of micronized Zentradi had formed going out the door. The former warriors not even minding the cold as they waited to enter the ship and have their chance at returning to their original enormous size. The protoculture chamber worked its mysterious marvel on each and every one of them, deconstructing the tiny human-sized aliens, disgruntled with this life of peace they'd suffered on Earth. And it reformed them each into another formidable soldier, adding a slew of new recruits to the ranks of Khyron. He sat and celebrated with Azonia, drinking to their great success, their impending victory over the entire Micronian species. It pleased Azonia to see her chosen champion in such high spirits, knowing that soon, together, they'd dominate the universe. As the forces of Khyron and the renegades Zentradi continue to grow, we can only wonder at the fears of Exodor and his worry that perhaps the Zentradi really are no more than toys of destruction, the dolls of the devil.